The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Gas Company, Dr. Ben K.D. Asante, has emphasized the need for Africa and Ghana, for that matter, to consider internal sources to finance its capital project during the transition period, as well as to build the requisite intellectual capacity to manage such projects. He said this at the company's 2023 Stakeholders Roundtable discussion held in Accra on Tuesday, 4th July, under the theme, Embracing New Gas Markets in the Energy Transition Discourse, the Role of Stakeholders. In an exclusive interview with Energy Ghana TV, Dr. Asante noted that Ghana Gas and the ministry are championing this initiative to ensure the smooth realization of a country's energy transition.
Within the context of Ghana, Ghana Gas and the ministry are championing this. Now, what we want to do is to make sure that as we talk about moving from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources, we actually have the requisite intellectual capital as well as the requisite intellectual financial resources to be able to meet the target. So two things, the financial investment as well as the intellectual capital are required to be able to move from the fossil fuel based energy sources to the renewable sources. So that is what Ghana Gas is really pushing for. In terms of the infrastructure, we are looking to make sure that where we find those resources, and gas being the transition fuel, where we find gas in commercial quantities, we have the requisite infrastructure to link those sources to the market. Now, the market currently is mostly just for power generation, but we're also looking at other non-power uses of gas. I mentioned gas for heating. So heating, say in the industry such as ceramics, cement, pulp and paper, and of course, I would even say things like using gas as a feedstock for fertilizer, which would be the agrochemical industry, as well as the petrochemical industry, to manufacture of urea, methanol, and whatnot. So gas will have a whole plethora of uses besides just energy use. And that is what Ghana Gas will be championing. We've been in discussions with the Ministry of Railway Development, where gas will be used for vehicular transport, for fuel for the internal combustion engines. And not just the rail cars, but even our own cars. Your car, my car, can also use gas in the compressed form, what we call compressed natural gas, to be able to fuel our cars. And I think that is something we look forward to.
In a presentation to stakeholders, Dr. Asante underscored the critical role of natural gas as a safe transitional fuel in the country's energy transition agenda. He said, it is important for Ghana to significantly balance environmental responsiveness and economic impact in the national efforts toward the transition to a cleaner energy future, and subsequently called for a gradual approach in this regard. According to him, natural gas is considered globally the transition fuel of choice on account of its low emissions and cost relative to other forms of fossil fuels. He stressed that natural gas is the fossil fuel with the lowest carbon count and therefore the most appropriate candidate as a transitional fuel towards global decarbonization. Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister for Energy, Honorable Andrew Ejapamesa, commended this initiative by Ghana Gas and appreciated all energy sector players embracing the energy transition. He touched on ongoing developments in the sector and the huge financial investments government needs to realize the ambitious 2070 targets. He further called for the stakeholders' active involvement and contributions to energy transition to realize the clean agenda. Representatives from the various sector institutions present also noted that the issue of energy transition is still evolving, thus the need for the current discourse. Head of Government Relations at Ghana Gas, Madam Augustina Asariose, explained to Energy Ghana TV that the stakeholder roundtable was long overdue.
Like my chief executive alluded, it was a long time coming. This has been on our table for a very long time, but I guess the timing wasn't right. We realized that during our various engagements with our stakeholders, we saw some form of a disconnect. That, we are conversing all right, but not really with each other. And we also identified some gaps that we felt that needed to be addressed, especially going to the energy transition, going into the challenges that we are facing in the industry, most especially compounded by the issues, with Russia and Ukraine. So as a country, we really need to think about what is the future of our energy. so that we won't find ourselves want. So we felt like, look, in order for you to make headway, you first need to bring the critical minds together, critical stakeholders that drives the policy, to enable you to really put some form of a direction in place to know really where you're going.
Visit energyghana.com or energyghana.magazine.com for more on these stories. Energy Brief is proudly brought to you by Airport View Hotel.
Energy Ghana TV. Local in focus, global in perspective.